Today, it's time to rank our favorite barefooted elementalists' weapons. I wanted to make this list to highlight some underappreciated weapons in Lune's arsenal. My criteria for ranking these weapons pretty much comes down to whether they're fun or fulfill a role or niche in the game that's actually useful, then I'll rank them highly. Lune easily has the most interesting, powerful, and diverse group of weapons in the game, largely due to the fact that she is the most malleable character. She can be the DPS, the healer, the breaker, or everything in between. So with that being said, even though I'm pretty tapped into the game after hundreds of hours of playing, there still might be some weapon combos I'm missing or just don't know about. And if that's the case, definitely feel free to mention them in the comments. These videos really just exist to help the community learn new things about the characters. Whether that is through me or the comments, it does not matter to me. Lune has so many different possibilities that it's extremely difficult to find them all. I will also be ranking these weapons based on a normal, non-new game playthrough with a baseline of around 200 Lumina points. Starting off with weapon number 1, we have Angerim, Baby's first burn weapon. This weapon has good scaling, and that's pretty much the extent of the goodness. Everything else about this weapon is aggressively mediocre. It wants you to stack a ton of fire stains at the same time, which, needless to say, is not good. Lune wants to have a variety of stains and be actively spending them to empower her abilities. At best, this weapon acts as a weak burn applier via base attacks, which are not great to begin with, and the burn damage pales in comparison to something like Verso with his 300% burn bonus weapons. Theoretically, if you had 4 fire stain stacks and 4 combo attacks, you could stack 32 burn and get 120% burn damage bonus. But that requires you to use base attacks, and you wouldn't be able to empower spells. It's just not strong enough to justify, so we're putting it in bad tier. It just takes way too much setup for way too little payoff. Next up is Benesim, one of the meta healer weapon options for Lune, especially in combination with Typhoon, to set your team up with heals and buffs. It's a nice weapon with a clear niche use, gives you a decent stain at the start of every turn, and can be acquired fairly early on. Overall, not much bad to say about it. You really can't go wrong using this, and it's used in one of Lune's core meta builds. We're placing it in good tier. Moving on to Betelim, and this is one of the best weapons Lune has to offer, and you can get it early. It's basically just a very slightly worse version of Kralim. It ramps your damage up quickly, grants you 2 random stains per turn, and helps with your energy economy. The biggest downside is that the scaling is completely horrible, but the reason it's still so strong is because of the stain generation. Generating multiple stains at the beginning of her turn is one of the absolute best passives Lune can have. As long as you're running multiple different elemental skills, it allows you to almost always be casting upgraded versions of your spells. Hopefully either Lightning Dance or Elemental Genesis. This isn't the strongest weapon she has, but it still goes in Baguette tier. Continuing with Braselim, and this may surprise some people because 2 of the passives really don't jump off the table. The crit chance per light stain is completely useless, and the 20% damage on fire skills is pretty mediocre. But what really carries this weapon is the level 10 passive. 5% gradient charge gain is absolutely massive. That gets nuts really fast. Gradient attacks in this game are completely game breaking, and I personally don't even use them because they kind of remove any semblance of challenge. But this weapon cheeses gradient buildup to the maximum, especially in combination with the ability Stormcaller. Your allies free aim, you build up gradient instantly, and suddenly your team is launching gradient attack after gradient attack. It's a one-trick pony, but that one trick happens to be one of the strongest niches in the game, so it goes into Baguette tier. Up next is Chapelim, and this one is just solid. I like it. You can get it early in the game, and it fills a reliable niche, breaking things. Lune is a great choice for your team breaker, and this weapon helps her accomplish that without much effort or investment. It's not flashy, but it's effective. Good tier. Which brings us to Coralim, and for the longest time, I wasn't familiar with this weapon's game. Critical hits applying burn team-wide, especially in combination with Stormcaller, is incredibly strong. I didn't realize how insane the burn stacking for this weapon could get, and I think it's probably only behind Corpizo and how fast it can stack burn on enemies. If I could go back and redo my burn team comp, Lune would be 100% using this weapon with Stormcaller. But not only is the burn strong, it also has great base damage, good scaling, and a ramping damage bonus on top of it. Possibly controversial, but I'm placing this in Baguette tier, because it not only fills its niche extremely well, it's also just fun. Colim is next, and this one is interesting. The passives are solid, generating light stains is great, generating AP for Lune is good, and bonus damage per light stain is always welcome. But this weapon has the lowest base damage out of every single one of Lune's options. And to make matters worse, it scales with Vitality and Agility, which is the worst combination possible for her. That being said, I don't think this weapon is bad. You can slap it on most builds and it'll feel okay, but doesn't really fill any niche and the stats are awful, so it goes in average tier. Now we move on to Coralim 2 Electric Boogaloo, this time with less H's. This weapon just isn't very inspiring. You get it super early and it makes your ice attacks a little better. But ice attacks aren't great early on, and if you're using Typhoon, there are just flat out better options. I don't really see a scenario where you would actively want to use this. Bad tier. Next is its electric brother Deminerim. These two may look nearly identical at first glance, but Deminerim is way stronger. It's one of the best DPS options for Lune early on in Act 2 until you get Kralim or Betelim. The reason it's so much better is because Lightning Dance is the best move in Act 2, and this weapon directly buffs it. On top of that, the scaling is much better, it uses luck, so while it fills a very small niche window in the early to mid game, during that window it's actually the best option you've got. Good tier. Now let's talk about Elerim. This one is interesting because if you're someone that wants to maximize efficiency, this won't look very strong. But every character has one or two weapons more catered towards players who just want to be safe or play more defensively, and that's fine. This one scales with vitality and defense and grants you shields, making your Lune much tankier than normal. You can get it early and build around earth damage with it. It's not amazing, but it serves a purpose. Average tier. And now we arrive at Kralim, the most consistently powerful weapon Lune has. This is the weapon I showcased in my Archmage Lune build, and I still think it's her best weapon overall. Great base power, and it starts every turn by giving you 2 random stains, which as mentioned before is an incredible passive. And it has a ramping damage bonus that is extremely easy to manage. The only real downside is the poor scaling, and if you're wondering why it's better than Betelim, which is largely the same, it's because Kralim has slightly higher base power. In my opinion, the ramping damage condition is easier to maintain. With that said, it is build dependent. This weapon goes straight into Baguette tier. Then we've got Lighterim, the fire sibling of Coralim and Deminerim. Much like Deminerim, it fills a niche for a very short period of time, which still makes it better than Coralim. In my opinion, one of the most basic rotations for Lune in Act 2 is Wildfire into Thermal Transfer into Lightning Dance. While Deminerim boosts Lightning Dance, Lighterim boosts Wildfire. And honestly, there's not a huge difference between the two, so you can pick your flavor. Good tier. Lithelim is one of the 2 Darkstain weapons. These can be extremely powerful, or extremely bad. The inconsistency is what makes these hard to enjoy or rely on. And between the two, Lithelim is far worse than Scaverim, so if you were ever going to do a Darkstain build, it wouldn't be with this one. No niche, no point, bad tier. Lunerim is her generic no passive weapon, there's nothing to say, goes in unusable. Painerim is unfortunately much closer to Coralim than it is to its superior fire and lightning siblings. It doesn't have a strong niche, and thematically fitting, it stays in the dirt with Coralim. Bad tier. Now onto Potierim, another healing option for Lune, and in my opinion, the best one. It has the highest base damage of the healing trio, good scaling with the added slow as a welcome bonus, and it doesn't have any completely dead passives like Redalim or Benesim have. The level 20 base attack passive does hold it back from reaching its full potential, but that's fine. Use this with the Typhoon Lune build and follow it up with a boosted Hell or Lightning Dance for a really strong opener. Great tier. Redalim, as mentioned earlier, is slightly worse than Potierim at its role. The biggest reason is that the level 20 passive is useless if you're playing with Cheater. If you're not, then Redalim and Benesim are both very good alternatives. Functionally, they do the same things. Redalim is just a little bit less optimal, but it can go into the good tier. Saperim has synergy with gradient attacks and helps you generate stains faster than normal, and honestly, that's all you really need to be a good weapon in this game. Gradient is extremely powerful and the scaling is solid. Good tier. Next up is Scaverim, the better of the two Darkstain weapons. Doesn't mean it's great, but it is better. This weapon gives Lune her highest possible damage ceiling, but as I mentioned earlier, the Darkstain playstyle is incredibly inconsistent. Still, this weapon does fill a specific niche, has the highest base damage in her arsenal, and is satisfying when it works. We'll place this in good tier. Snowim is another oddball. Great base damage and a really unique passive. It freezes Lune when she drops below 30% health. It actually reminds me of Ice Block from Hearthstone. Shout out to that game, it was my high school game of choice. This freeze effect doesn't save you from one-shots, so to really use it properly, you'd have to build her extremely tanky. But if you do, I envision her as being pretty hard to kill. Offensively, it brings absolutely nothing. But I like the uniqueness, and I think it has potential somewhere. We'll slot this one into the good tier. And finally, we have Trebuchim and Troubadim. I'm just going to do them together because they're functionally very similar, and this video is probably long enough already. Both of these weapons juice free aim builds, which are the strongest builds in the game. So naturally, both are great choices. Trebuchim is better early due to the random stain generation on free aim shot at level 4, while Troubadim gains that same passive at level 20, but has better late game scaling passives. Trebuchim is one of Lune's best options in Act 2, and both of them fill a strong niche that holds up the entire game. We're going to place them right next to each other in the great tier. And that wraps up the list. Lune easily has the most flexible and diverse weapon pool in the game, and honestly, it's not even close. Whether you want to play her as the team's main damage dealer, full-on support, a breaker, or something in between, there's a weapon that makes it work. Some of these picks are clearly meta, others are underrated gems, and a few are just aggressively mediocre. But even then, you can still find success with the majority of her options depending on how you build her. That's what makes her so fun. If there's a combo I missed or some niche synergy that's worked for you, definitely drop it in the comments. I'm always looking for new ways to mess around with Lune's kit. Thank you all very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.